Did you just immigrate here from an orphanage in which you had no schooling your entire lifetime? Like, how, why do you think the Holocaust didn't happen? That's what I would ask them.
I'll use myself as an example then. A few years ago, I was suspicious on No, I'm not going to scream the N-word. And yes, I'm definitely here to have a real conversation with you.
Okay, I'm hesitant. I'm not sure I believe you, but let's roll with it, you know? What's good, man? I'm sorry that I've
You're
been
not already
dodging
making
you. It's just
excuses,
been
are you?
Dan
Because
Kurt. He's so powerful. I didn't know. And
yeah, I hope you're not making excuses already. Because multiple times I said, Hunter, let's debate a Mike Hunt, and then every time you see the Mike Hunt in the Discord, you always back up for some reason. It's
well, that's
always
because
your
I
ally,
genuinely didn't
or you're not
realize
taking
that
debates
I was
anymore.
dodging you. But now that I have seen that I am dodging you, what did you want to talk about?
There's multiple things I want to talk about, but I kind of want to continue the last conversation we had back a few months ago,
What was it?
because it was the idea that if you hold a belief that the Holocaust never happened, that's not anti-Semitic.
Well, then let's just talk about something else because I guess if it's like you've been led astray and you've been lied to and you just don't have the facts right, so you think it was fake, then yeah, maybe that's not coming from a place of anti-Semitism.
Oh, so well, wonderful. So Holocaust denial is not anti-Semitic inherently. Thank you for agreeing with me.
It
Now,
doesn't have to be if it comes from a place of ignorance, although
right,
most
you're,
of the
you're
time, let's be real, it comes from a place of anti Semitism.
most
Even
of
if
the
a
time
person believes
also
it based on ignorance, they would have been taught that thing by somebody who is anti Semitic.
correct. So they're just ignorant then. Thank you very much. Now, another thing too, Jews running the world, how is that anti-Semitic?
Well, it's if you believe that Jews are running the world and are doing something nefarious and are all working together with have like a hive mind, I would say that's more anti-Semitic than anything.
What do you mean a hive mind? What does that mean? That every single Jewish person has like thinks the same? Is that what you're saying?
Like they all like if in order to believe that Jews control the world, first you need to look at where Jews have disproportionate control over certain industries. Then you need to believe that Jews all think similarly enough and are somehow conspiring to enact some kind of nefarious plan.
Yeah, no, that's not what they're saying usually. What they're saying is a majority of powerful people just happen to be Jewish. And I think that they're saying that that's a little more than a coincidence. They're not saying that all Jews think the same. They're just
So
saying that a
when they
majority.
say like a little more than a coincidence, like yeah, you're right. There a lot of the reason that Jews are successful in some of these industries is due to just historical reasons.
Sure.
But it's very rare that somebody comes up and is like, "Hey, did you know that there are a lot of Jews in Hollywood?" And they're just why? They're just saying it for fun. There's a lot of white guys in Hollywood too. There's a lot of men in Hollywood too. So what is the point of bringing up the fact that there's Jews also in Hollywood? Usually, is it not the belief that Jews are bringing in the degeneracy, the liberalism?
Yeah, it is. A majority of powerful people who happen to be Jewish, because Judaism is a religion at itself, they're going to have similar values. It's a similar thing. It's a similar case with Christian white males. A majority of Christian white males will have similar core values or similar
Yeah, but I thought
beliefs.
that a
That's
lot of the Jews in Hollywood or positions of power weren't like actively religious. I thought that they were, wasn't it ethnically Jewish? Or am I
I think that
incorrect in
if you're
that?
born, I think regardless if you're ethnically born Jewish or not, you still are raised in that environment. Your parents more than likely will have been Jewish, so you would have grown up in that environment, even if you're not a Jewish person or a religious person yourself right now. But no,
Okay, yeah,
but
but
I
I don't see how, like,
go ahead.
what is the relevance of them being Jews then? Because when people say there's a lot of Jews, there are also a lot of white guys and a lot of men and white people. So, like, what's the purpose of singling out Jews?
I think they have a belief that the Jewish religion
Hmm.
or Jewish beliefs, whatever it may be, whatever their morals may be. A lot of times the talking point is, and I'm not even necessarily saying I agree with them. I'm just saying that I'm hearing them out. And from their point of view, they're saying that a majority of Jews in Israel happen to be very conservative. And then over in the United States, they become very liberal. So they have this idea that Jews are powerful people who happen to be Jewish, like people in Hollywood, people in the banks and whatnot, people who technically run the world, they say. They have this idea that they want to exterminate the white race and essentially turn everybody mixed. and have there only be like two races, Jew and people of color.
Yeah, so
That's
it's
my
that
interpretation.
belief that I would say is definitely anti-Semitic, along with a lot of other things. First of all, trying to get rid of white people. If the goal here is unironically, hey, let's just let people naturally reproduce, and eventually, then maybe people won't be as white or black. It'll be just kind of everybody's kind of a shade of brown. Yeah, I mean, who gives a fuck? Like
It's not.
I'm in favor of that as well. I'm fine with that. Now, of course, if you're forcing people, if you're saying you must, I guess, engage in interracial marriage or something, then that would be pretty fucked up. But like, even that sounds like a non-existent actual problem. Who cares if white people become a minority if it's from completely natural and organic means?
So, how would you feel if it was done in an artificial manner, meaning through media, through culture,
Uh,
and
I,
like what if it's like that? Like not necessarily
what's the
forcing.
well? Why do Jews want to wipe out white people when Jews literally fit into the white category? The majority of Jews here would consider themselves white.
I don't believe that they're trying to eliminate white people to begin with. I'm just explaining to you that that's what they believe, and I'm saying that that's not hateful to believe that. That's just an ignorant belief. It's not anti-Semitic.
So you do agree that it's ignorant to believe that Jews are all working together to somehow, not all, sorry, the Jews in power are working together to wipe out white people. You agree that's an ignorant belief.
Unless you can prove it, yeah.
Okay, cool.
But it's not hateful.
I mean, if it's coming from a place of pure ignorance, yeah, then it's not hateful, sure. But if you're coming from a place of my life sucks and I'm just a nice white guy and I think the evil Jews are responsible, then that's probably coming from a place more so of hate.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. So I guess you agree with me then, because last time it was a completely different conversation. Like you were just shutting it down immediately, saying no matter what, if you have those views, you're just anti-Semitic.
I do think I remember that, yeah. And then I also remember as we were talking, I think I changed what I was saying then too. I think I was like, actually, I guess if you're saying it's purely from a place of ignorance, then maybe not. Um, but yeah, either way, no, I don't think that that belief is necessarily anti-Semitic, but in 99% of cases, it probably is. Just like you can have some people that maybe out of just pure ignorance, they think that black people are dumber than white people on average. But like most people that think that, and if anyone's ignorant who's believing that, they're probably being taught by people that do have a vested interest in, yes, spreading racist belief. You know?
Wonderful. I can't lie, but admit that they're kind of based. You're kind of agreeing, and you're acknowledging that you were wrong before, but you agree now. That's kind of based.
Well, I mean, I remember our conversation last time. Yeah, I remember I was fighting you really hard, and I don't know if I was just confused from the get go, or if it was framed poorly in the beginning. But yeah, either way, like if we're gonna go with the very rare case of somebody who's purely ignorant and it's not motivated by hate, sure. But I would again say that in most cases, I would be shocked if it were just pure ignorance.
Okay, I understand. Yeah, so maybe it was my end, though I think I framed it really good last time. But if you misunderstood, that's I understand
So,
that.
do you think that Jews are in control of a lot of powerful industries and are trying to get rid of white people?
Not trying to get rid of white people, but I think that they are in control of a lot. I think they have a lot of influence because their culture revolves around that. I don't think that's too far fetched to believe.
Their culture revolves around what exactly?
Being really good with money.
Um, I mean, okay, I maybe, but I
But
don't know. I don't know
it's
if
not
like so what. So okay, then just tell me your actual opinion on this issue.
what exactly? Like, are they trying to wipe out white people? No,
Yeah,
I
like
don't think.
you were first arguing whether or not it's anti-Semitic to believe that. Now we've kind of gotten past that point. So what is your actual belief?
Oh yeah, no, I just hate this whole notion immediately calling people anti-Semitic. The term anti-Semitic and even racism now is just such a vague, broad term that can apply to practically anything now, and
Yeah, but
that's
a
a
lot of the
huge
times
problem.
it's done in a way. Let's be real. A lot of the people that are called anti-Semitic have said things that are pretty clearly anti-Semitic, like Kanye West. That's a very easy one.
Going DEFCON 3 on the Jews, yeah, that does sound anti-Semitic. That sounds like he is engaging in war with Jews. But I'm talking about people who hold these questions in place. Like me, I've even said it myself that I believe Jews run the world, and I don't think it's too far fetched to believe that. And then I get immediately called anti-Semitic for that.
Because
Or
saying they run the world is okay. So this probably is where everything broke down, because I was about to say is an anti-Semitic belief. Unless you're acknowledging that you believe this purely out of ignorance, which is very strange, then I would say that that's most likely an anti-Semitic belief. It has been an anti-Semitic belief throughout ages that Jews control the world. This is why you can look back at like the Elders of Zion, and you can see the imagery of an octopus that has its tentacles in every part of the world, which is supposed to be an anti-Semitic dog whistle that Jews are controlling every part of the world. A lot of the reasons that Jews have more influence or control in certain industries, like banking or like Hollywood, is due to historical anti-Semitism. I know you're probably not going to like to hear that, but I mean, Jews started Hollywood themselves because Thomas Edison was anti-Semitic and didn't want Jews using the video camera, so they left and started Hollywood. As far as banking, I know a long while ago, I think it was Christians who weren't even allowed to engage in lending money, but Jews were. So they had a long cultural, it was very normal in their culture to engage.
Hunter, you're just repeating what I said. And on
No, I'm
top
not.
of that,
I'm giving you a better explanation as to why this is. I never argued that there are not more Jews in some positions of power, like banking or in Hollywood, but why that is the case is really important. And earlier you said it can't just be a coincidence. I'm telling you, it's not a coincidence.
I
It's
said
not. There's
it's more than
historical rate. There was historical anti-Semitism that pushed them into a lot of these industries.
Did you not hear what I said before about it more than likely being culture? It's the way they were taught. It's the way they were raised. Raised to be really good with money. Technically going to be really good with money when you grow up, and so is your group. That's why I was saying it's not that far fetched out to assume, oh yeah, if they're really good with money, they're probably going to run everything that has to do with money.
Well, I mean, accountants are really good with money. Are Jews disproportionately accountants? Is that like a thing?
No, I mean like banks or entertainment or even the music industry. It's typically, or media. It's typically going to be run by a Jewish person. I think that when you get into a high degree of power, it requires a lot of skill and knowledge in that field.
So what's the point of bringing up that they're Jewish then? Just to be like, well, Jews have a really rich culture that seems to respect literacy and research and being good with money. So that's why
Yeah,
a lot of the times we see Jews who are really successful in this country. If that's all you're saying,
yeah.
okay, I guess. But like, again, what's the
Okay,
point
but
of
hold
bringing
on.
up that Jews control all these big industries?
He also noted that I am an ape and I should go F myself.
The point is that me mentioning the fact that Jews have control of media, they do have control of music. I never clarified why that was the case.
Some control,
part.
yeah.
Wait. The culture part. But before I ever get to the culture part, I'm immediately shut down as being anti-Semitic just for pointing out that fact before I even make the point of explaining why. That's my point right there.
Because usually if you're coming up there saying Jews control the world, and then it's followed by, but it's just because they have a rich culture, it sounds disingenuous. Also, it's wrong because Jews do not control the world. Jews do not control Hollywood. They can have a lot of influence in Hollywood, as they do if you're going to classify them as Jews, when we could also just look at this from perspective of white people or men or whatnot. But again, like, you can say that like Jews have disproportionate amounts of power in places like Hollywood. You would be correct, at least statistically. But usually when it starts off with, hey, I think Jews control the world, yeah, that's like 99% of the time anti-Semitic.
Yeah, but I'm that 1% that's not being anti-Semitic. And what I'm saying provocative? Absolutely, but that's my point.
Yeah, but just being good with money doesn't also translate to like having control over these industries.
I think it can. It absolutely can. I think it can play into having a great influence on a lot of these things. Yes.
I feel like you would see Jews disproportionately being accountants.
If you're really good at running a business, that means you're really good at controlling things.
Maybe. Yeah, I mean, I can definitely see that.
Okay, so with that logic, it's not a surprise that a majority of things owned by Jews, that would, like Hollywood, like the medias, Fox, CNN, whatever it may be, is probably owned by a Jewish person, maybe even YouTube. I think.
Yeah, but why bring up the fact that it's owned by a quote-unquote Jewish person? It's owned by a white guy. Like, what is him being Jewish really?
Wait, stop. You asked me for my belief on the whole Jewish thing. Before I was explaining to you, these people that think that it's Jews coming together and essentially exterminating the white race, I'm saying that that's not anti-Semitic. But then you asked me, okay, what's your opinion on the Jews? I never came to you and said Jews run the world. I said, well, I believe Jews run the world, but I think that it's because of culture. That you asked me the question. I didn't approach you with that.
So, okay, I got you. The thing is that what do you mean when you say control? How are Jews controlling the world? That's the big issue here, which is also the JQ. I mean, that is the Jewish question. I guess if I want to go with, okay, fine, you're not saying that they're like nefarious necessarily, then maybe you're like right on the line of Jewish question. What does what does control mean here in this context?
Influence. A lot of influence.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, as far as like influence in some of these industries that you brought up, I guess I just don't know what the point of bringing up that they're Jewish has to do with this.
Well, I didn't. You asked me.
No,
and
you
I
said Jews control the world, and then that led us to this conversation about how Jews do have disproportionate control in Hollywood or something. But
well, no,
why are we isolating Jews here? Why aren't we saying white men have disproportionate control?
Well, I say that as well, but I also clarify by saying, well, here's the explanation behind why Jews more likely, well, not they do run the world in my opinion, but here's why. It's because of their culture that's reflecting off of that. You asked me for my opinion, that was my opinion.
I mean, yeah, they did have a historically, literacy was incredibly important among the Jewish culture, which is why historically you also saw Jews climbing the ladder of success at higher rates, because in a time when the world was very illiterate, if you were literate, obviously that's going to give you a huge advantage. But like, I guess if we're gonna just break this down to like the point of optics, then optically, why wouldn't you start with like Jews have had a very rich culture that really respects literacy, so it's not surprising that we see a lot of Jews in certain successful positions nowadays. Like that sounds like saying it in a way that isn't dog whistling. If you're like, did you know that Jews control the world? But I'm just saying it's because of their culture, you see, like then it sounds like, what's your actual intention here?
Well, it's a matter of context. Contextually, I was talking about the whole anti-Semitic thing and how what they believe is not anti-Semitic. And then you segued, which I'm fine with, you segued into asking me for my opinion. So I said, okay, well, in my opinion, I do agree in the sense that Jews do control or have a lot of influence. Maybe I shouldn't say in the world, but in the United States, I would say. I don't think it's far fetched, and here's why. I don't even think that that's dog whistling. That's just literally me explaining my.
Okay, yeah, I'm trying to decide then, because people in chat are saying that it could still be anti-Semitism even if it's stemming from a place of ignorance. Which, I mean, yeah, people can be racist without realizing they're racist. The definition of anti-Semitism: hostility to or prejudice against Jewish people. Prejudice defined as a preconceived opinion that is not based on reason or actual experience.
I would disagree.
So yeah, I would say then that if your opinion is that Jews control the world and are trying to wipe out white people, that would be anti-Semitic.
So now you disagree?
I think that would probably be more in line with anti-Semitism, but you're giving me a very niche, like wedge thing, which is maybe somebody is just purely ignorant. They don't have hate in their heart. They've been lied to about this, so this is what they believe. Are they still anti-Semitic? I guess if they don't have hostility against Jews, maybe not, but they would still have prejudice against Jewish people. So maybe, I don't know. It's just, I'm not really all that concerned about like arguing about whether or not it's definitionally anti-Semitism. It's just usually when people come up here and start harping on about Jews controlling the world or whatnot, that raises some red flags.
Well, I think that it's important because now anti-Semitism and racism and sexism and even soy, the term soy, like all these things, and even woke. I like to use the term woke a lot, but it has lost its meaning. A lot of these words have lost its meaning because these words apply to practically anybody that you disagree with or anybody that says something you don't like even questioning the Holocaust.
He also noted that I am an ape and I should go F myself.
That's wrong. Like, I don't think that you should call somebody anti-Semitic for having questions.
So okay. Yeah, I get you. I hear what you're saying. I'm trying not to chuckle because, I'm just asking questions meme, of course. But I agree that there are definitely times where people are too quick to label another person anti-Semitic or racist or something. Sure, I'm not saying that's like not a thing, but then you're giving examples of like, how many times have you heard somebody asking quote unquote questions about the Holocaust and it's not coming from a place of anti-Semitism? How did you not go to school? Did you not learn about the Holocaust growing up? What kind of questions are we asking? Are the questions, hey, did 6 million Jews really die? Or are Jews maybe lying about the numbers to try and garner more sympathy so that they can get more and more control over all of us? That's just a question, but it sounds pretty anti-Semitic all the same.
Okay, I agree that a majority of people that say that more than likely are actually anti-Semites. But like I said before, if somebody just simply asks the question of
what question?
Or not even the question. I don't think the Holocaust happened. Let's just say that. Someone says, I don't think the Holocaust happened. I don't see how that's inherently hateful. He can be either ignorant or he could be either hateful, but we don't know until we actually have him break it down as to why he thinks that.
Okay, but you realize that even if you're dealing with like a actual neo-Nazi, they're not going to be like, oh, I'm just hateful. They're never going to say that.
If they say the Jews are degenerate, I think that's a really good indicator right there that they fucking hate Jews.
Or like, that Jews are trying to spread degeneracy. I think that would be probably another one. Okay, yeah. It's really tough for me to imagine a world in which somebody's like, I think the Holocaust is fake. And you're like, so tell me, Timmy, why is this, my friend? Like, did you just immigrate here from an orphanage in which you had no schooling your entire lifetime? Like, why do you think the Holocaust didn't happen? That's what I would ask them.
I'll use myself as an example then. A few years ago, I was suspicious on practically everything. It wasn't just the Holocaust. It was slavery. It was even race to begin with. There's all sorts of things I was questioning because I saw this really... I'm a young guy, so of course, like, I'm going to be impressionable to a lot of things. But there's essentially somebody that said, question everything. I took that literally, question literally everything. And I started questioning certain events throughout history, like the slavery actually happened, did the Holocaust actually happen? And then I would question, like, what's the incentive to lie about the Holocaust? Oh, well, if Jews run the world and they want people to be sympathetic towards them, maybe they would lie about the Holocaust. I was like, oh, that's probably reasonable. But I was constantly called a Nazi, or
because that's like that's usually a neo-Nazi belief, like, or at least really close to one.
I'm saying I'm not a neo-Nazi. That's my point, is that I was called that without actually explaining myself first. I was called that by my own family. I don't believe that anymore because, again, I don't really see the reason as to why anymore.
Yeah, but don't you realize that, like, you're telling me right now that you said before, now you recognize it was wrong, which is fine, which is good, obviously. But like you said before, you were saying that I think the Holocaust didn't happen because Jews were trying to control the world and garner sympathy. How is that not anti-Semitic at that point?
No,
I mean, that is prejudice.
No. I said that it's logical to assume that if they run the world, they will want people to be on their side. So therefore, they would lie about such a horrible event to gain sympathy. That's what my reasoning was for a potential possibility. I wasn't even saying that.
Which would still be anti-Semitic because the belief that Jews control the world would be a unjustified bias or preconceived notion you have about Jews, which would then fit the definition of anti-Semitism.
What if you can prove it? What if there's, like, Nick Fuentes, for instance?
Nick Fuentes doesn't prove it. He has not proven it. He made the cookie joke. We've all heard it. And
so why don't you debate him on it?
The cookie joke?
No, why don't you debate him on the Jews running the world?
I mean, maybe I will get to someday. Last time we talked about the war on men. I have a hard time. I feel like you're kind of wearing a mask a little bit. I feel like you're trying not to come off as radical as I feel you may be. Because if you're coming up here telling me, why don't I debate Nick Fuentes and how you believe the Holocaust was fake, you don't anymore, but you still think that Jews control the world, but you don't think you're anti-Semitic.
Stop. I never said I believed it. I said that I believed it could be a reasonable possibility.
I thought you said when you were younger, you believed the Holocaust was fake, and then everybody called you anti-Semitic.
He also noted that I am an ape, and I should go F myself.
I was thinking that it was reasonable to have that belief at the time. But it didn't mean that I necessarily said that, oh, this is for certain, 100%, this never happened. No, I was more on the line of like, okay, this is reasonable to assume, not assume, but to investigate and look into. And then I looked into it, and then I didn't really find much.
Okay,
But
cool. I mean, I'm glad that you looked into it. It's just when even now, I mean, you just suggested I go and talk to an actual Nazi about the Holocaust being fake or not. Like, it's tough for me to believe. It's tough for me to take you seriously.
Hunter, I'm not finished with my point. This is crucial. People were immediately calling me anti-Semitic, and I'm saying that people should look for themselves whether or not the Holocaust really did happen, and it's going to turn out to be that they probably don't find anything. Meanwhile, other people might find something that indicates the Holocaust never happened, and I'm just saying, let's have a conversation with them instead of fucking shutting them down.
Okay, yeah, like I feel like we're having a pretty decent conversation here. But still, I mean, okay, I don't know. It's like, yeah, people have already looked, like there's historical analysis about all this. And then I'm not saying that you're a Nazi. I'm not going to call you anti-Semitic now, but it's tough when you come on here to try to argue that, well, maybe you can believe these usually quite anti-Semitic beliefs while not being anti-Semitic. And then you suggest I go and debate a Nazi about these issues. It's just tough for me to take it seriously. And I feel like you're wearing a mask. Hopefully I'm wrong. Hopefully you're just here, genuine, good faith. Seems like you're wearing a mask. Seems like you're hiding your power levels a bit.
Do you know why I recommend you go debate I think he's a Nazi too. Do you know why I recommend you go debate him?
Why?
My point is that if you debate people that have a lot more knowledge than you in any regard, you're probably going to learn a lot, and you're probably going to come up with better arguments. But if you're constantly debating stupid Nazis that just hate Jews just for the hell of it, you're not going to get anywhere. But I think that Nick Fuentes is a person who has a lot of knowledge. And I think that if you debate him specifically, I think that could really benefit you.
I mean, yeah, maybe if I did a bunch of research prior, so that, because I think that his quote unquote knowledge is pretty much just like misinformation that he's memorized really well. So yeah, maybe if I like really prepped up, I agree that I'm not going to spend all my days just debating the bottom of the barrel here. But all right, I mean, is that all you wanted to talk about then?
I think you should always argue with people who come up radical. I think that's a great thing you can do. Okay. I think that you can learn a lot. I think that even if it's a conspiracy theorist, you can learn a lot from them too. Like sometimes it's just things that the government actually does hide from people that a lot of people marked off as conspiracy theorists, but when it actually happened, like it's, reality, and a lot of people miss it. Like I think there's really important things that you can miss from.
Yeah, like what? When did that even happen? Are you going to bring up the COVID stuff?
I guess we talk about like the Wuhan lab thing. I guess maybe aliens existing, or maybe JFK assassination, or 9/11 conspiracy theories. Like there could be facts in the matter that turn out to be true, but you would have never known if you just said, "Oh, well, that's a conspiracy theory, so I'm not going to engage with it."
Okay, yeah, I agree that you shouldn't lazily just like label anything you don't agree with as a conspiracy theory to get out of it. But a lot of the times, let's be real, the way that this information is posited is literally a conspiracy theory. So if you have no factual information and no basis for anything, yet you get up on your show and go, well, I think it came out of a Wuhan lab. And then 3 years later, we do a huge investigation and it turns out it came from a Wuhan lab. You were still the conspiracy theorist at the time because you were just making dumb fuck assertions based on nothing prior to the actual evidence. So a lot of people did this with COVID, where because a couple things happened with COVID that I guess slightly resembled some of the shit that Alex Jones said once, they were like, look, the conspiracy theorists were right again. It's like, no, you don't get to just throw a bunch of shit on the wall and then claim that you're right when some of it sticks. You know what I mean?
But they're still on the side of truth regardless.
What?
They were on the side of truth the whole time.
But we had no way of confirming it was truth.
We looked into it and come to find out they were on the side of truth. They were objectively in the right side of the argument.
They're not. You're not on the side of truth if you just make shit up and then it happens to become true later. You're on the side of truth if you've reached this conclusion that is truthful based on actual evidence. Saying that if I just one day is like, maybe I was just, back in ancient times is like, I think today the world is round just because, I saw a round donut. Now the world is round. And then like later on, we discover the world is round. I was not on the side of truth, bro. I was just making shit up that some of it happened to be true at the end of the day.
So you were on the side of truth, yes.
The side of truth implies that you are on the truthful side. You would have to know that what you're defending is in fact truth. If the evidence isn't there, how do you know it's truth?
I disagree. Well,
so
we're just
do you mean when you say the side of truth, maybe you mean that like they were right? I guess they were correct, sure. Yes. But like the side of truth, no, I believe that the way in which you are on the side of truth is if you've reached a truthful conclusion by looking at actual truthful evidence.
We're going to have a fundamental different point of view on that because I believe in God, and you can't technically prove he exists or prove he doesn't exist. But I believe I'm on the side of truth when I say I believe in God.
Well, I can get the God thing a little bit more. I mean, I understand that it's like,
but like you see what I mean. That's what I mean by saying on the side of truth, and like that's just a fundamental like different point of view we're going to have. Like I believe that you can have intuition that kind of supersedes facts sometimes. Like you don't need to have facts in order to prove something exists, or not even prove it. Something can exist without any facts indicating that it exists. That's what I mean.
I mean, maybe, yeah, but I would be really shocked to hear of a time in which intuition is better than facts. If we actually had the ability to compare 1-to-1 intuition versus facts, why would we not go with the factual side?
I think more times than not, from our human perception, that makes sense to us. That we have facts that indicates this one thing, so of course, we would believe this. Until we prove otherwise. Like, for instance, how do we know that we don't find evidence 20 years from now that the Earth is actually a square? We don't really know. We're just kind of assuming. We're making strong, safe assumptions based off of evidence, which I'm not saying
no, but it's not as much of an assumption if it's based on evidence. So, like, we have actual evidence that the world is round, right? We have, I mean, even more so, we have literal photos of the world, but we have evidence that can demonstrate that the world is round. That there's evidence of this. I agree that yes, just if we have not yet proven something doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. Obviously, before humans knew how to prove gravity or oxygen, didn't mean there was no oxygen or gravity. But again, I would be really cautious of claiming to be on the side of truth if your truth is, or you're coming to a conclusion based on what? Feelings, intuition. I don't know how you could reach a truthful conclusion that way unless you just kind of got lucky by guessing it.
Well, I could tell you perfectly. All right. So let's look in the instance of like racism. I think this is a perfect example right here. Intuition over like facts. So let's say you have a black guy get pulled over by a cop and it's for speeding. Meanwhile, other white people were going like the same speed limit as you, like everybody's speeding, but he just happens to pull you over. And then he makes some remarks and gestures at you, but you can't really tell that, you can't really prove that he's being condescending in a racist way. You just kind of know, you kind of feel it. You kind of feel that he's being racist. You can feel that sometimes. And the point is that that's your intuition right there, telling you that this person is more than likely not a racist.
You mean more than likely telling you that they are a racist in this case, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like if you have a cop pull you over and he's just making some remarks, but it's kind of like 50-50 toss up. Like, oh, you can prove he's racist, but you kind of really can't. It's kind of like calling somebody condescending. Like you can't really explain how somebody's being condescending sometimes. You can just kind of tell.
Yeah, but if somebody came along and said, hey, I was just pulled over by a cop and no, he didn't actually say anything racist, but I just kind of had this intuition that he was racist. No, you're not on the side of truth. You're not telling me the truth. Your intuition doesn't mean that guy was actually racist. The much stronger argument would be, hey, whether or not the cop is individually racist is actually aside the point because the system of policing disproportionately negatively impacts black people. So the fact that a black guy got pulled over while a lot of white people were driving past while driving the same speed is already an issue with cops disproportionately pulling black people over for speeding as compared to white people. So that would be the actual argument there. Not that like, well, my intuition sort of told me this guy was racist, so I think he is. Do you see the problem there?
I see how it could turn into a problem, but the point I was trying to make, maybe I didn't frame it good enough, but I think sometimes you can, for instance, you couldn't tell, but I mean, your intuition would say sometimes whether or not somebody's being bad faith. Like you feel that I'm wearing a mask, and maybe I am. And if I am, you turn out to be on the side of truth, though I'm telling you right now, I'm not wearing a mask. But sometimes you can just kind of tell when somebody's being in bad faith, but you can't really say or explain the evidence as to why. You can just kind of feel it. You can feel when somebody's being disingenuous.
Okay, sure, but I mean, you got to understand that a one-to-one social engagement, and you can kind of get the vibe that somebody's being condescending, is a lot different than like, I think the world is round, and then you later turn out to be right or wrong, and then claim to be on the side of truth.
I mean, I'm sorry, that just sounds kind of ridiculous. I'm not like I'm not throwing a jab at you. I'm just saying, like, I feel that the Earth is flat, so therefore it's flat. Like, I mean, I don't know.
But I mean, our intuition would tell us the world is flat, right? So that's the problem. Is that like,
I honestly, I couldn't tell you for certain what it is. Like, I'm not a math guy. I'm not going to look at the sky and say, well, I can see theoretically that it's a sphere from the angle that is pointing out from the direction of the sunlight. Like, no, like people say that you could tell that the Earth is round from the reflection of everything, but I'm like, I can't tell. I mean, maybe it's flat, maybe it's round. I don't know.
right? Okay, sure, but like, if we were going to go your route of intuition over facts, then we would most likely all believe the world is flat, because intuitively the world is flat. I mean, literally from our perspective, it's flat.
No. I'm saying sometimes it's justified to appeal to intuition over facts.
Sometimes it's okay to put intuition over facts. I mean,
yeah.
Okay, wait, over facts. I think if you're using intuition in place of facts, so like, again, if you're like, I talked to my friend and I don't think they liked me. No, so you don't have any facts, as in you don't have a literal audio recording of this person saying they hate you, but you were able to pick up on some vibes. They seemed really standoffish, kind of cold towards you, kind of gave you the feeling that they really didn't want you around. So maybe you're going based on your intuition. It really felt like that person didn't like me, so I don't think they like me. Again, a social interaction, fine, sure. But if we had facts, which was, here's my friend who has, I don't know, given me money and helped me out when I've been in a tough spot, hit me up specifically and wanted to hang out, it told me a lot of the times that they like to be my friend, but then today they seemed a little bit standoffish and cold, so I think they don't like me. If you're putting that intuition over facts, then I would be then I would have a problem again. I would say, well, maybe that person was just a little bit cold or distant that day, but there's no evidence to actually suggest they don't like you.
All right. Well, I would disagree still, because I have another example. Let's say you have a couple and the wife spends every single day with her husband. Obviously, she's going to get to know him. She's going to be able to tell when he's feeling upset just from maybe body language, maybe it's the vibes he's given, whatever it is. But let's say he goes to work every single day. Nobody's going to notice anything, because the facts remains that he's still showing up to work, he's getting the job done, and he communicates well with people. So a lot of times when people, like, am I allowed to say the S word on here? Okay, when people commit suicide, a lot of times people just miss the vibe that they give out, or sometimes they're really good at hiding it, but they can still give out a vibe that they're going to fucking end their life. And I think that it takes a special kind of person to really understand you. And I think that if you have a wife or somebody really close in your circle, like a really close friend, they're going to be able to have that instinct or have that.
No, but they don't always. I feel like you're kind of making my point, because.
And that they're going to have that intuitive, like some people just have more intuition than others.
But
like,
you just said there are some people who commit suicide and it's like blindsided to everybody.
Right. But
so there's some people that don't have any intuition. They don't even their own fucking parents don't realize intuitively that something seems off. Well, no, and yet then they commit suicide. It shocks everybody because people were in that case prioritizing intuition over facts.
But sometimes, like, what if those parents just had low intuition? Like, I think some people have more intuition than others.
Sure, but then we couldn't use intuition then as a reliable method by which we could determine truth. If everybody has like a different level and ability there.
In the broad scheme of things, maybe not. Maybe not. But
if you're saying you have intuition as in like, hey, I'm with my friends and this is my kid is acting this way or something, fine. But if you're using intuition to replace knowledge, I have an issue then. But either way, I feel like it might be time to end the call. I am glad we were able to talk, and yeah, no, I finally overcame my fear and stopped dodging you.
Yeah, what's my name, Hunter?
My cunt 69.